On the 12th of May 2012, as part of the Global Day Spring of Action, Occupy London regathered in St Paul's Cathedral, in the very location that they had occupied from October 15, 2011 to February 27, 2012. As the crowd gathered, the Teach Out, organised by the 10 City University, which is the educational arm of Occupy London, commenced.
If you believe the government
in the very location that they had occupied from October 15, 2011 to February 27, 2012.
And they've redrawn the criteria now to take it away from 500,000 genuinely disabled people. And that's going to include me.
One of the ways of working and achieving your objectives is the long-term way, the careful, patient way of changing the law, and it can happen. Win hearts and minds. The other, of course, more short-term way is to work and use the law to its best effect. Use the health and safety legislation. Understand the health and safety legislation. So when certain people accuse you of breaching the health and safety regulations, you know it, like we did, better than them.
And what people learned in Athens and Puerto del Sol and St. Paul and Zuccotti Park is this. The wisdom of the people is much greater than the wisdom of any single person, whether it is a lawyer like me or a professor or an intellectual.
Using Twitter and map handouts, Occupy London led a crowd of near 2,000 people on a tour through the city's institutions, who, according to Occupy London, had helped cause the current financial crisis of the UK and who continue to profit from the crisis by, among other ventures, and I quote, grabbing fat privatisation contracts of our public services, unquote.
Now I'm going to shout other directions.
Among the officially endorsed literature, Occupy London claim that institutions such as the Royal Bank of Scotland, Lloyds, Goldman & Sachs, Santander are all responsible in some capacity for having, quote, gambled with our pensions and savings, created financial nonsense to make money out of thin air, brought the global economy to the brink of ruin and forced ordinary people to pay for their mess, evaded billions in taxes, unquote, and the list continues. Their tour, however, was seen by the police as a potentially serious civil unrest, which seemed particularly ironic considering the fact that 2 days before, 30,000 members of the police force and their supporters from across the UK demonstrated in London, demanding that the government put a halt to the cuts and the privatisation of their service.
I have no opinion on any matter at all. We had an absolutely fantastic series of talks outside St Paul's, really great atmosphere, the police were there, no problems at all. We went off in a little march. We're going around a tour of all this sort of key places in the financial districts, lots of the bad boys, the hedge funds, the banks, etc., etc. Very peaceful, very good atmosphere. And then suddenly the police appeared in numbers, and they just blocked the road suddenly for no reason at all, split the march in half. It got a bit kind of nasty for a moment. Then the police broke the lines. That was fine. We carried on, and now they did the same thing again a second time, and now they've done it a third time. So there's no trouble, the march is just going on fine, everybody's in very good humour, but periodically the police are just stopping everyone, which of course leads to some heated emotions and people are wondering why they're doing it. It doesn't make any sense.
What's the point of what, sorry? It's a breach of the peace cordon, okay? As you've obviously seen, when people push through, violence occurs, okay? We're keeping people here because we think a breach of the peace is imminent if we start letting people go where they want to go.
And here we are again, we're stuck, and I think actually they might just be now they're letting people forward again.
Although the tour was compromised by these regular interruptions, the organisers dealt with them by heading straight to the Bank of England, where the people gathered, the sound system was set up, and the feeling that another occupation was imminent, as the pop-up tents sprouted, symbolic of the Occupy style of protest.
George referred to the tax havens, and that's a big issue as well because it allows them to hide profits offshore, some 18 trillion by recent estimates.
After a few hours, the police had circled the protest and blocked off about 150 other people who had come later from joining.
A Section 14 has just been served on the lawful protest we have here at the Royal Exchange next to the Bank of England. The police are repeating and repeating and repeating this Section 14. It's not clear what they're saying.
Hello, this is Green and Black Cross. On my understanding, Section 14 needs to actually be authorised by the senior Metropolitan Police Officer. Now that is the Chief Constable of Metropolitan Police or suitably designated authority. Bond's commander has actually said to me face to face that that authority is not necessary, and because he is OC commanding on the ground, he can make it up as he goes along. Right, would you like me to get the senior police officer on and speak with you to remind him of the level of his authority?
Section 14 of the Public Order Act 1986 gives the police the power to arrest people in a public assembly if the senior police officer believes that the assembly may result in serious public disorder, serious damage to property, or serious disruption to the life of the community, among other clauses.
Conditions have been imposed by the Chief Police Officer.
Despite the dubious power of the commanding officer to implement Section 14, and although there had been no sign of violence throughout the day, and no damage had been made to property, and although numerous speakers had spoken to a concurring crowd about the power of non-violence and respect to the community, the police and their specialist territorial support group began arresting people.
Why am I getting arrested? Because I definitely don't agree with the Section 14 imposed on us. I don't see that we are disrupting anyone. I see that our right to a peaceful protest and assembly should definitely be stronger than, their will to prevent us from protesting. I don't know, I just see this just as another crackdown on protest and the right to protest.
The police photographer decided that he wanted my position on top of a pillar. It took 3 police officers, including a sergeant, to convince me that it was not worth fighting for anymore, as they took my details and threatened to destroy my ability to work in the UK again.
It's very threatening to me to actually use the fact that I'm from another country to say that I'm never going to be allowed to work in this country again. But I'm a member of the European Union, which makes me allowed to work in this country regardless. Yeah, I know, I've noticed how you work. You guys protested. You guys protested 2 days ago.
Right, I'm not going to get into the politics of it now.
2 days ago.
I'm not going to get into politics of it now. They're demonstrating unlawfully because the senior officer here honestly believes that it's causing a major disruption for the community around.
And in what capacity did you see it as disrupting
But the thing is, it's someone who's looking at the overall. It's not my opinion. It's not my opinion that matters.
I said everyone's just been given their last warning. I believe that's including press, madam.
So I could be arrested here as well?
Potentially.
As it turned out, the senior police officer in charge had sufficient rank to implement Section 14. The occupiers backtracked on this through their sound system, but this was missed by many. After 11 arrests were made by a larger number of police than there were occupiers, the police left the scene along with most of the occupiers.
Hey, Mr. Justice, you're telling me that I can't cross the road as long as I do exactly what I'm told.
As part of the Global Day Spring of Action,